All right. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here. Today's sentencing closes a chapter, but it underscores a lot larger story. Today, Ross Bailey was sentenced to 5 years of probation and 24 months of home confinement. The story, though, is much lengthier and much more than that. In 2020, Mr. Bailey obtained a $2 million loan from the taxpayers. Oftentimes, the federal government provides loans to our small businesses to help them succeed, particularly here in West Virginia. But what was even worse about this was that Mr. Bailey's loan came from the CARES Act, federal legislation that was specifically designed to help boost small businesses across the country that were struggling in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. He successfully applied for those loans and took the very maximum of $2 million. And he did promise, as all do that take those loans, that the proceeds of those loans would be used in order to help his business get through this very difficult time that we were all experiencing in the country. And to use the words that Mr. Bailey agreed to in his stipulation, he converted those funds into purchasing stock and cryptocurrency as opposed to helping his businesses. When COVID-19 hit, those relief dollars were a lifeline, meant to keep workers employed, families stable, and small businesses alive. Instead, some saw it as an opportunity to line their own pockets. That betrayal cuts deeper than simple fraud. It's a theft from every taxpayer and every person who played by the rules during one of the hardest moments in recent memory. And I want to point out that this is not a limited or isolated event in West Virginia, unfortunately. But the folks that you see standing behind me today work day in and day out to ensure that any fraud, waste, or abuse of government dollars is not only discovered and found to the very penny, but brought before courts like this to ensure that the taxpayers are made whole and those that defraud the United States government and ultimately the citizens of the United States are brought to justice. So I'd like to thank our lead prosecutor, United States Attorney Eric Goes, for the work that he put into the case today. I want to thank Justin Marlowe from our office, who is here today to work on our civil asset piece that helps us to freeze those funds to assure that those dollars come back to the United States. Ryan Combs is here, who works in our financial unit. And I also want to thank Greg Neal, who is here with us today and is working on the civil side of this to make sure that the penalties of these actions are commensurate with the criminal activity. You know, I like to thank our lawyers because they work day in and day out to do this, but the real heroes behind this are the investigators that roll up their sleeves and bring all of those necessary instruments to our office to make sure that we can properly prosecute these cases. And I know I have a few of them here today. Of course, as always, in the state of West Virginia, we're so grateful for our state police for everything that they do, including their work on this case. We want to thank NASA OIG, who was critical. You know, you might not think NASA working on these areas, but they really jumped in headfirst on this COVID fraud and ensured that we were recovering all of those dollars that were misused in the process. The West Virginia Auditor's Office played a large role in helping us. That shows the state and federal collaboration, and our friends at the Secret Service who helped us investigate bringing this to a close today. And I will say that over the past several years, our office has made it, a priority. And together, these prosecutions, these COVID-19 fraud prosecutions, have brought back to the taxpayers over $5 million. And the result from today is one of 3 cases that this office had in a family. For the Bailey family, it was a family affair. And they made up over 80% of the fraud that was committed here in the state of West Virginia. And we have brought all of that to justice and recovered over $4 million from just that family alone. 83%, over $5 million for the people of West Virginia. And that money is going back where it belongs. And accountability, although overdue, was delivered today. But this has never just been about the dollars. It's about trust. It's about making clear that when people exploit a national crisis for personal gain, there will be consequences that follow them to the courtroom and beyond. And to those who think that that fraud can be buried in chaos or hidden in complexity, understand this: we are here, we will find you, and time will not be a barrier to us coming after you. And today's sentence sends definitely a message. I want to close by thanking President Trump and Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche for the focus that they have put on fraud throughout the country. They realize the importance and how abhorrent fraud, waste, and misuse of taxpayer dollars are. With our National Fraud Enforcement Division that we have just stood up, we are putting an even sharper focus on that. So we want the people of West Virginia to know that they can expect that from the United States Attorney's Office. They can expect tireless work, and they can expect us to be the guardian of their tax dollars that they work every day so hard for. And we appreciate them every day, and we will work to protect them. I want to thank you very much. I want to thank the team behind me very much today for the wonderful work that we've done, and we will continue to work on that every single day. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions. Any questions?
Mr. Capito, you said this was 83%. What's the other percentage? Is that like spread out through a lot of people? Is that just something else you're looking into?
That's a great question. In this office alone, in the Southern District of West Virginia, we've prosecuted 30 defendants. So that recovery, that other 17%, is combined among 30 other defendants. And I will tell you that oftentimes people look at smaller amounts of dollars and think that it's somewhat insignificant. Well, when we're talking about taxpayer dollars and government funds, this office takes it seriously, so there is no amount that we will overlook.
It also sounded like you were able to recover a lot of the money. This guy seemed like he spent it on other monies, like he just transferred money to money. You were able to collect a lot of that money back?
We absolutely were able to recover that money back. At this point, we've recovered restitution in over $5 million totaling. The details of which Eric, I can let you speak to that on the details if you'd like to.
In the Ross Bailey case, the judge ordered $1.596, almost $1,600,000 in restitution. The defendant paid that going into sentencing. So the $1.6 million, which was the $1.4 million plus interest and penalties, was recovered today prior to sentencing on the criminal side of it. But this office also has tools on the civil side, and we can go up to treble damages. That also was done in this case. Details are forthcoming, but in addition to the $1.6 million, a person can be held responsible for up to treble damages for the harm that was caused. But to answer your specific question, yes, $1.6 million was paid over to help recover the damage that Mr. Bailey caused by his misuse of the EIDL loan.
It'd be like a crypto. Was that very hard? Was that a very difficult task to try to do?
Yes, it was, and that's the importance of teamwork, and that's what the U.S. Attorney was addressing specifically. That's why he's tasked not only the civil attorneys, but the forfeiture attorneys in our office to help target that and go after those resources. So if the money is hidden in cryptocurrency accounts, we could trace it, track it, freeze those assets, and then have that money available to be applied directly to correct the harm he's caused.
Any other questions? Yeah. Absolutely. I'm glad you asked the question. Well, as I said, the loan was initially taken out, and in 2020. We're really fortunate here in West Virginia. We are a committed group of people in West Virginia. We sort of have an independent streak to us, which makes us a little different. I often talk to my colleagues in other states, and they don't really have the cooperation that we're so fortunate to have here in West Virginia, because everybody behind me today and most of these folks that are driving down the street right now sort of have one simple goal in mind, and that is to make West Virginia the best place to live, work, and raise a family. And what does that mean? What is a big component of that? Guarding our taxpayer dollars, guarding against fraud, waste, and abuse. So this team back here is not a bunch of bodies that we rang up on the phone and said, can you stand behind the podium? Each one of them rolled up their sleeves and didn't work in silos, but worked together. These investigations take a long time. Part of the reason, of course, that they take a long time is process, paperwork. Nothing in the court system is super speedy, but it took a long time because we wanted to be thorough. We wanted to be able to face you, the people of West Virginia and the American people today, and say that we rolled up our sleeves and got every single cent back that was possible. And none of it is possible without the teamwork that was done on this case and the two other cases of the relatives that were sentenced earlier.